We at the media trust Fauci. We also like to convey the image that the public unequivocally loves and trusts Dr. Fauci as well. And when you go directly to public opinion on the White House YouTube channel, any video with a good doctor shows a monumentally high dislike ratio, which is typically how the public shows their trust. So is Fauci public enemy number one or public savior number one? We think it's clear when you pay attention to the propaganda while ignoring the evidence, he is indeed public savior number one. So much so that we consider him Saint Fauci, always preaching the gospel of fear. In conclusion, you may not like the coronavirus or the fact that Fauci funded the lab that may have created it, but at least he used your tax money to do it. And if you're crazy enough to not love that, then at least Fauci is still at the head of advising you and the rest of our nation on how to handle a disease that he may have paid to create with your money. If an arsonist set your house on fire, would you task him with putting the fire out? Of course you would. Trust us, you'd be in the safest hands possible. Good night.
It's funny because it's true. And as you're going to see in this video, that satire video is not that far off from the coverage we're getting from BuzzFeed, CNN, and MSNBC that should be absolutely ridiculed for the psychological propaganda disinformation that they're trying to pass off as news to you. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is OTCQB. We are Change.org. Lots of information to cover today. In this video, we will have an interview with an entrepreneur CEO that will give us an insight to the absolute insane economic situation unfolding right now. And of course, there's a lot to say about Dr. Fauci, which we're going to be discussing. And I think that Awaken with JP Sears absolutely did a brilliant job highlighting the larger truth of what's happening here in his satirical video, which we played just a small clip from in the beginning of this broadcast. If you want to watch the full 9-minute video, the link to it will, of course, be down in the description below. He definitely deserves a lot more views than he's getting right now. And this latest Fauci piece is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, check that out after this video. But in related frauds that try to convince you that somehow they want to help you news, we have the latest corporate virtue signaling with many companies like BMW, Lenovo, Cisco, and others somehow, for some reason, forgetting to show their appreciation for Pride Month in the Middle East. I wonder why they don't virtue signal there. It's almost as if they just don't care about the issue and they just want to pander to you so you consume their products. Now, before we continue on, I think it's important to highlight that we were calling out Dr. Fauci for over a year on this independent media organization. We have been attacked, we have been vilified, we have been downranked, and now we have been vindicated with finally the general public finding out the larger truth after Fauci's emails were released to the general public, showing that he actively misled the American public, lied to them, and knew a lot more than he was letting on, absolutely highlighting top-level government corruption by Dr. Fauci, which he should be severely questioned for, and for some reason, he got praised by CNN, BuzzFeed, MSNBC in this utterly disgusting interview from a former White House spokesperson who did everything in her power to protect him from any transparency and accountability from the huge troves of bombshell emails that came out yesterday. If you want to know what happened in those emails, definitely check out our video from yesterday if you haven't seen it yet. And this interview was definitely a calculated move by Fauci, who knew the exact show to go on in order to receive the fluffer treatment. This, of course, as yesterday, no one even dared to ask the White House during their briefing about this large scandal unfolding right now. And just now, in the moments of making this video, Dr. Fauci came out and decided to defend the Chinese Communist Party, saying that the information against them is, quote, far-fetched, as he doubles down on an animal origin story for last year's sickness, repeating, of course, a Chinese communist talking point just days before saying that a lab leak theory was probable, highlighting yet another massive flip-flop from Dr. Fauci, who seems to be more bipolar, frantic, and nonsensical by the day, as of course he keeps mixing up his statements like it was changing with the wind. This is of course since the early onset of this, he took the lab leak theory seriously, even though he was lying to the American public about it, along with masks, along with many other issues, as we found out through these emails. And this is utterly insane, as even no host animal has been found in over 16 months that has been linked to this sickness, which is absolutely out of the ordinary for previous sicknesses in the same category. So to have Fauci essentially do the bidding of the Chinese Communist Party that is under investigation for genocide right now, to see him repeat a lot of their government talking points without basis, without any actual evidence, is absolutely mind-boggling. The stories coming out of China are terrifying, especially with the situation happening to the Uyghur Muslims there, that we only get sporadic coverage here in the United States. Again, Dr. Fauci is now proven to have lied to Congress, which is a crime that he should be held accountable for, since previous people who did this before, like Roger Stone, literally were sent to jail for it and had the FBI raid their house. Dr. Fauci knowingly misled the American public, and now we know that this is the truth because of these emails, and now that same government wants us to trust them with the medical procedure, as Jeffrey Epstein's close friend was just sworn in as the science advisor for the United States. I'm going to be talking about this on LukeUncensored.com. There's a lot of things I can't even mention here. I will be going into that, LukeUncensored.com. But just continuing the video because we have so much to go into. And just like the U.S. government and Dr. Fauci are being dishonest about their medical policies, the U.S. government is just being as dishonest about their financial policies, which, if you look at the current situation unfolding in the United States, shows an absolutely troubling sign for everyone, especially if they're holding US dollars. To talk about this and what's happening with our financial system, we're going to be talking to a young entrepreneur, Kevin Smith, who is the founder and CEO of Gold Mountain, to get an insight to what's happening in the larger financial markets and what his company is up to with special on-the-ground information when it comes to precious metal mining. Now, it's important for you guys to know that this interview was conducted on behalf of Gold Mountain. We are working together, and to me, this is a win-win for everyone, for us, for Gold Mountain, and for you, being able to get first-hand information about what is actually happening in the business world that's not just propaganda in the mainstream media. Now, Kevin, just jumping into this very important topic, thank you so much for joining us, but specifically, we're seeing a lot of news from Goldman Sachs, with them actually predicting an 8% increase in the U.S. economy this year. Now, as we know, Goldman Sachs hasn't always been right. The U.S. mainstream media that's also predicting a big upturn in the U.S. economy hasn't been right as well. How do you see things unfolding, especially for the larger economic outlook moving forward?
Yeah, I think we're in a really interesting time right now. I mean, I think with the reopening, obviously, we're going to see some increased economic output and consumption. But ultimately, I'm a little bit worried about productivity and, people wanting to get back to work with all the stimulus and all the loose monetary policy. It seems we've kind of encouraged people to sit around at home, and I'm wondering what the knock-on effects were going to be. I mean, they had some fantastic numbers after the COVID, baseline month-over-month comparisons after the COVID months that we had there. But we're going to be coming back to reality a little bit here, and I'm a little less optimistic about the results that we might have.
Yeah, because, when the mainstream media keeps telling you that everything's fine, everything's hunky-dory, it's all coming back to normal, in real life, the situation's a lot different than what they portray it to be, and you could start seeing it, whether it's the service industry, whether it's commodities. I want to get into all of this. There's so many things I want to talk about that you have a very important insight on, that you have a very unique perspective on. But before we do that, Kevin, for people who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself, and how would you introduce your company, Gold Mountain?
Yeah, my name is Kevin Smith. I'm a real estate developer on the commercial and industrial side of things. And I work for Gold Mountain as the CEO and director. And this is my first mining deal that I'm taking forward, and a little bit different approach. Gold Mountain Mining is going to get into near-term production And rather than endless dilution for shareholders, we're looking to use the cash flow off of production to expand the project in a non-dilutive manner.
Yeah, you're definitely doing something different that I never saw before. I definitely want to get into that with a full explanation of what you guys are doing here. But before that, just sticking on the topic that we started off here with, when it comes to the economy, a lot of people are saying we're facing a 1970s style kind of inflationary crisis. I mean, we're seeing it when we go to the supermarket. If you're buying lumber, steel, iron, wheat, copper, oil, whatever it is. When it comes to commodities, it's clear that these are being affected either by a supply shortage or something else happening behind the scenes. How do you make sense of all the larger ramifications that are financially happening, but yet people are closing their eyes to, imagining like it's not there?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, people just believe what they're told, right? Like there's an old saying or an old theory, if you're told a lie for 2 months, all of a sudden people start to believe it as a truth. And with all of the mainstream media, the information that we're getting, as well as the information we're getting from these central banks and governments, they're telling you it's transitory, it's not going to last that long. But, in my opinion, looking at this, you see wages increasing. I mean, they're having to pay people $100 to go to a job interview. They're increasing minimum wage in order to entice people to get back to work because they're so used to the stimulus. I think this is going to be more than transitory. I think it's going to be long term. And as you highlighted earlier, this is something you can't really hide from. It seems like everywhere you go, every time you pull out your wallet, everything's going up in price. Costs are increasing. And that's what really drove us to get into the gold space and to get into gold production, is to have a hedge against inflation, so that as they're printing these dollars and diluting the value, we have a hope of staying in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you personally speaking, just the service industry here, even in Florida, even a place that was open, I can't imagine how it is in places that aren't open. But everywhere I go, we're hiring. There's incentives for hiring. There's shortages, so a lot of times you go out to get a service, it's either done horribly wrong, it's either rushed, or sometimes not done at all, with businesses forced to close because there's no one trying to even work for the amount that they're willing to pay them. So there's a lot of things happening. But what's your assessment on what the U.S. Federal Reserve is doing? Do you think that they're afraid of potentially raising rates to prick the bubble? How do you think their actions are going to be moving forward from here?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think they're trapped. I don't see how they can raise interest rates when the whole economy is based off of this loose monetary policy and easy money. I read a stat the other day that every 0.5% that the interest rates increase, America's debt service costs go up by $136 billion annually. So, I mean, even from their own perspective, they got to be really careful about raising rates, especially with all this new debt that they're taking on. So, yeah, I don't see the ability to raise rates in the future. I mean, I know they talk about it. It seems like they start talking about it, especially when gold gets hot. But the reality is the whole thing comes down, in my opinion, if they do raise the rates.
Yeah, people don't understand. We're at a $2 trillion annual deficit, and Biden wants to make that bigger. He wants to have more social safety net programs, which includes more stimulus checks, more UBI, more child care, more checks coming in the mail, and then who pays for that? Who's going to be footed with this bill? As of course, mountains of debt are just being laid in front of the American people and the future of the United States. And to me, I don't know about you, but this is insurmountable. I can't see there's no logical sense to a government that's just going crazy, spending money willy-nilly without any accountability, without even balancing its checkbooks. It's just, I don't know, for me, it's absurd. And the larger question is, how long can they continue to do this as they planned on spending even more money that they don't have?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're already starting to see it come home to roost. The US dollar index is weakening day by day. And I think the overall confidence in the US dollar is fading. You're seeing countries like Russia and China, really boost their gold imports. And I think that's a hedge away from the USD. for a potential monetary reset where, maybe currencies have to be backed by gold again. But the reality is, I think with the US dollar is the plan is to inflate it away. One of my favorite books, The Creature from Jekyll Island, they talk about how inflation is the hidden tax. And you asked who's going to pay for it, and I think we all are. They're just going to inflate the value of USD, and our costs are going to increase across the board. And as they inflate away their debt, they're off scot-free, and then we're all having to basically start from square one.
G. Edward Griffin, the author of that book, is a good friend to this channel. We've interviewed him a number of times. He does incredible work, and I definitely would recommend that book that you brought up that really gives you a perspective to the true reality of what's really happening. And with the government becoming so reckless with the checkbook, a lot of people are moving to alternatives to the dollar. A lot of people are moving to real estate. I mean, here in Florida, the prices are just skyrocketing, and everyone's telling me, like, hey, it's not a good time to buy. Prices are absolutely crazy, but I think they could even get crazier. I mean, prices here in Florida are different because they've always been kind of good. Now that they didn't lock down, they're even better. Now, with the instability of the dollar, a lot of people are moving into that. Some people are choosing cryptocurrencies. Some people are choosing stocks for some reason. Some people are choosing precious metals, silver, gold. And I wanted to kind of leave this question up to you, Kevin. What do you make of people calling Bitcoin the new gold? Where do you stand on this debate? Because I always get asked, why should I go into precious metals when I could just do Bitcoin? And I'm like, why not both? That's my personal perspective. But where do you stand on this particular debate?
Yeah, no, I share the same sentiments as you. Why not have a little bit of everything, spread your risk around? I really like Bitcoin. I've been in it since 2016. I actually did some crypto mining back in the day. So, huge fan of cryptocurrency and everything that it brings. I love the decentralization. I love the fact that it takes the power away from governments and central bankers and puts it back into the people. I love that it's honest money and it's finite and it can't be diluted in a similar fashion as some of these fiat currencies are. But to your point, I don't think it makes sense to have all your eggs in one basket. And, that's why I spread my personal portfolio around. I've got Bitcoin, I've got physical gold, physical silver. And then, I obviously am a huge fan of physical gold because we started this gold mine here in order to make sure that we had pretty much an unlimited supply for ourselves over the coming years.
Now, I also heard that your company, Gold Mountain, is doing something rare and they're actually going into production in 2021. Is that true? And what else are you guys doing as far as operations moving forward?
Yeah, no, that is true. We went public December 31st of last year. When we came out, everybody said our timelines were super aggressive. I come from a private equity background, so it was really important to me to get this business up into cash flow so that there were some fundamentals there and we could grow the business in a non-dilutive fashion. And we're also really aggressively drilling out the property. When we took it on, there was 374 ounces. In the last 2 years, we've been able to add we've been able to bring that up to 810,000 ounces for our total resource. And we're quite confident that we can have this over 1 million ounces by fall. And the whole thing here is, we don't want to continually dilute our shareholders unnecessarily. We might have one more financing in front of us. And then at that point, this will be a self-sustaining project. And it'll allow us to grow through the proceeds of mining, which is extremely unique. A lot of mines take 15, 20 years to get into production, and it's endless capital finance and dilution to shareholders. And that's something that I wanted to do away with and, really reward the people who supported us early.
Now, if I could ask, what is the timeline for your production? And I also heard, I don't know if you want to get into this or not, that there's a very interesting story about how you guys acquired the property. I don't know if you want to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So timeline to production is we're in construction right now. Construction will be completed at the end of June. We're anticipating having our mining permit at the end of June. And then it'll be July, August is waste rock mining. September we'll be actually mining the gold ore. And then that ore gets delivered to our ore purchase agreement partner, New Gold. They have a facility 130 kilometers from us. And once we drop it off to them, they take on all risk of recovery, and they have 17 days to pay us. So really good cash flow turnover on this business, which is obviously really important for a new mine. And then the story of how we acquired it. So we went into Equinox Gold Corp, who were the previous owners, and we made them a $10 million all cash offer. At that time, gold was around $1,200, so it was a pretty weak market. We offered them a $1 million down payment, which is essentially like $8 an ounce that we paid them for the gold that we acquired. And then it's a $9 million interest-free loan that allows us to pay them back. We made the first payment on that a couple weeks ago of $3 million. And the two remaining $3 million payments will come out of proceeds of mining. So ultimately, we're out of pocket around $4 million cash. And then once we get this mine back up into production, we can pay the balance off through the proceeds. And again, a non-dilutive fashion to do that. And that's why we're really fast-tracked to get this into production.
How would you say you guys are different than the competition? What lessons are you kind of implementing from everything that's happening in the world, from everything that's so chaotic, with so many supply shortages, with so much instability? How are you guys planning on moving forward in a direction with all the information and knowledge that you guys have?
Yeah, one thing we did to really protect our margins and make sure that we were insulated from cost overruns is we came up with a mining contract agreement with a group called Newellman Lake, and they're doing all our mining for us and all our highway haulage. We've locked in our cost per ton on both mining and highway haulage so that we have a lot of certainty going into production. And on the other side of that, our ore purchase agreement. You know, if you're building a plant right now and you need steel and materials and all these supply chains are, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty with timelines. We're using someone else's mill that's already up and running. They have a really soft patch in their gold grade. We have super high grade gold, which fixes that issue for them. So we're essentially piggybacking off of their infrastructure, which lets us get into production a lot quicker with a lot lower CapEx. And then we're splitting the metals payable with them. So we get 89% of all the metals payable that come off, and they get 11%. So it's an excellent economics for our deal. And it also helps them in that they'll get a bump in their gold grades so that they get better prices when they take their concentrate to market.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a good deal, especially with the rise of commodities, especially with governments implementing more regulations, more rules, trying to prevent people from actually making some kind of living for themselves, with governments giving out checks, trying to make sure that you're good, staying at home, not doing anything else, fully locked down. It's good to see entrepreneurs actually doing something and actually trying to move in a space where, again, I mean, the world's crazy, and it's de-incentivizing personal business. And that's why I like to work with guys like you, Kevin, and to try to make people aware, like, hey, with everything that's happening, your situation is dependent on you. So it's great having entrepreneurs like yourself on to highlight the projects, what you're doing, and also give us an interesting perspective on the larger financial picture, which there's, again, so much disinformation about.
Oh, I was just going to say, really appreciate that feedback. We're doing our best to create a business where we'll be independent and don't have to rely on handouts from the government. And, we can build something for ourselves. And when gold's in play, you have a little bit of sense of surety with all the inflation that's going on.
Definitely, Kevin. I agree with you with all the craziness happening in this world today. The more information that you could bring in, the more information you could kind of analyze, the better off people are going to be, especially understanding a larger picture that sadly, a lot of people are blind to. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to find out more information about you or your company, where can they go to do that?
Yeah, you can check out our website, gold-mountain.ca. We're extremely active on Twitter and Instagram under Gold Mountain Mining Corp. And we have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel as well. And that gives people a really good idea of what we've been up to and the progress that we've been making and where we're headed as a company.
Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. The links to that, of course, will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me, Kevin, and thanks so much for watching, participating, commenting, liking, and sharing these videos. Because if it wasn't for you guys individually doing that, we wouldn't be here, and we're only here because of you. This is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.